All right, so this is the beginning of part 2 of my building a large city tutorial. So I'm going to get started. You can check out part 1. I'll provide the link to that somewhere. So we've got about 33,000 residents now, and we're really falling low on our budget. We need more people. We're getting all sorts of notifications right now. So I'm just going to kind of pause for a minute. So one of the first things that we're going to need to do now is put in a police station. I'm a little bit lax on police stations. I don't always put them in right away because they are a bit expensive, but the people of the city really do tend to appreciate having a police presence, at least a bit. So right now, the city is made primarily up of poor residents. We'll take a look at the tax income. You can see most of our residential taxes are coming in from low wealth, and we're running low on power because we're growing so quickly, and so we're going to put in another power plant. So we've got actually tons of cars now, like about 10,000 crossing this bridge here. So wow, our volume of traffic is red. Let's see. But this highway bridge can really handle a lot of traffic, so we're still not having to worry much here. But you can see little pockets of traffic at stoplights as people are trying to get on here. But that's fairly typical. So as promised, our budget's getting a bit closer to coming into balance, but we're continuing to have to add more capacity for water and fire. Water and power. You can take a look here. Our water needs and our power needs are growing because our city is growing really rapidly. So I tend to be one for let's just make the city grow as quickly as we can in the beginning, and then we can kind of make up for the numbers later on. And there are definitely pros and cons to that approach. But as you can see, in the beginning, we don't really have too much in terms of commercial development. A lot of it really does start with industrial capacity, and that's fine. That's exactly what I was expecting to happen. But you can see our industrial lands over here are just kind of booming, and that's pretty exciting to see. So one thing that I'm going to do fairly soon, so this highway bridge is going to at some point get overwhelmed. Longer term, what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect these two highways to give people another way of getting up into the industrial peninsula, and I'm going to bring the industrial zone down into this area here as well. The reason for that is we really want to get cars flowing both ways. One of the big predictors of commercial demand is how much traffic you have. So if we can get people moving through this area, it'll really boost demand here and kind of make this little section of town more vibrant while also reducing traffic over this bridge. Because we don't want to make it too overwhelming. And if we were really struggling financially, we could put a toll on the bridge, and that would solve a lot of our problems. But it would make people pretty unhappy, so we don't want to do that unless we really have to. So again, I'm going to add another water pump. At some point, you're going to want to add, larger water pumps, but we don't need to do that quite yet because they're very expensive. They're like $3,000 a month or something in there, something like that. Power plant as well. So again, there's options both for power and water to add larger options. And we keep getting asked about putting in a jail. They're not extremely expensive, so I'm just going to go ahead and make everybody happy by putting in a jail. And we're in the red again with our numbers, but I'm going to go ahead and say that that's not a problem right now. So let's see. So now we're getting a different type of industrial demand, which is a good thing. We're getting some demand for manufacturing. So what I'm going to do is kind of exactly what I was just talking about. I'm going to take out another loan, big loan, and I'm going to make that a highway connection and start building a little bit more on this plan that I have for increased demand downtown. So really what I'm going to do is I'm going to build something that looks a little like this. So really the crux of our commercial area is going to be all right around here, you know, when we get to that point. And I'm gonna expand a little bit more. Which way am I going to expand? I haven't decided. I'm going to expand my residential area actually a little bit further this way too, because eventually we are going to want some more people to move in. So I'm going to kind of do a three-piece approach here. And I like to have a pretty consistent network of avenues to get people, you know, kind of moving in the way that I expect them to and want them to. So I'm going to just kind of start laying the foundation here for that. Eventually, I'll put more commercial in this area. But now I'm going to move up here. I'm going to put in a big old avenue. It's hard to sometimes work on diagonals, but we do the best we can. So this is going to be our kind of main thoroughfare in this area. So I'm going to expand our manufacturing industry down a little bit, and I'm going to put in just a couple more off-ramps just to make sure that we do get them in. Because at the diagonals, like I was saying, they can get missed sometimes. So I'm just going to kind of, well, I'm going to start from here. And I'm going to fill in this area. It's going to look a little disorganized, but that's okay. Kind of planned disorganization. And as long as you know what you're getting yourself into, I think that's okay. So we're not going to go crazy right now with additional capacity. Oh, and we ran out of money again, which is fine. So this is probably going to be, I'm thinking, one of the last loans that we're going to take as we build up the city, at least for now. So I'm kind of following through with my earlier approach that I was talking about of just kind of building up our, you know, our roads. You don't have to do every single one, but you just want to be thoughtful. Make sure that people can, you know, easily get around. You also want to make sure people can, you know, make their connections underneath the highways too, because that's important. So here, this is a good kind of expansion to what we had going on before. So I'm going to have to add, you know, more water, more fire departments, just probably one. Good. Add some more bus lanes or bus stops. There we go. That should be good. And I'm going to want to induce a little bit more demand. The schools don't fully cover this area, from here, most likely, but let me double check. Yeah, but they're pretty close, and with where our budget is looking right now, don't want to go too crazy on adding more network of schooling, but we will get around to that. It's just we don't want to do it right this second. You don't want to go too far into debt when you're building your city. But what I am going to do is I'm going to add a hospital. Because hospitals fill up quickly and they're not as expensive as schools. One thing that's important to think about is, the more intersections you put at avenues, the slower people go. So you don't always want to make intersections at every single opportunity. Right. Putting in our bus stops. And lastly, our water lines over here. Now I'm being super disorganized about the water, but that tends to be okay. I mean, the pipes aren't very expensive to put in, as long as you cover everywhere that you need to cover. And there may be cases where you don't want to cover everywhere in water. So what we should actually see, what I'm going to show you really quick, is a change in traffic pattern. So you're going to start seeing some people, not too many, but some, taking this highway instead of this highway. It's going to happen over time a bit, but eventually you'll see a more consistent flow. And that'll make people want to build right here in the commercial district. So let's see if we have any other freebies right now. Well, we've got a mayor's statue. I'm going to put one right here. You may still look and think, oh wow, he's wasting a lot of money. And you're right, I am, but I'm wasting money purposefully. If we had more money, I would put in a university right now. But again, that's one of those things that can also kind of wait until later. Having some water struggles again, to be expected. Put in a pump. So really the big thing that wants to be built right now is a manufacturing capacity. And you can start to see this little line here is a manufacturing industry. So you've got our first little batches of unemployment over here, which is not really a good sign, but in any city you are going to have some amount of unemployment. But it might mean that there's not enough jobs available, or that people are struggling to get, from place to place. But like I was saying before, you've got now 2,000 cars that, rather than taking this route, they are actually going the other way instead. And that'll actually also get reflected in our pollution data. So you'll start seeing some air pollution along this route. Water pollution will be more contained over in the industrial area. Just some little tips here and there. So probably what we're going to do next is increase our commercial zone kind of right here in this area. So I know I said probably 800,000 for debt, but we're going to take just a little bit more. And we're not going to do anything radical now, but I'm going to build out just some low density commercial zones for right now, and we will go and increase the density of those zones later on, but not right away. So really what I'm doing here is I'm building the outline of the downtown area. And commercial districts tend to be pretty good at generating revenue, which is really helpful for where we're at right now. These roads are coming in strange ways, but that's okay, we'll fix that too. Okay. We're just going to do this all kind of our own way. The road feature is not always the smartest, but we make do. Alright, so I'm going to put in my own roads the way that I want to see the roads. Oops. So this time, for a relatively small investment, we're probably going to get a pretty big payoff here. The reason being that people are traveling these routes anyways. You don't need to go too crazy, but I'm going to go ahead and fill that all in. Fill this in. Okay. We only can get a ramp on that side, unless we cut out that road. And I'm going to cut out that road. So we definitely want to have at least the option of getting off the highway on both sides. So again, I'm not going to put in water. I am going to put in bus stations, but water we're going to add later on to this area. Bus stations are good to add in the beginning, because if you wait, you then end up having to knock things down and it just becomes more complicated. The same is true with subways, but I'm not anticipating that we'll need a big network of subways in this particular city. So we should see a pretty big influx of growth pretty quickly in this area, mostly along the highway route. There we go. And you can see this development down here is a little bit more middle class and upper class compared to some of our first little bursts of housing that we had. And we're getting really big boosts from our manufacturing area over in here, which is good. That's exactly what we want to be seeing. I'm going to add in just a little more. A little more capacity for manufacturing. There we go. And I'm going to take out a little bit more in depth. So I'm starting to get kind of into a dangerous spot. But that's okay. I think we can handle it. I've done this enough times where it tends to be all right. Let's see. So we should see some big booms in industry right in this area. There we go. Probably need a fire station to cover just the little fringe of this area up here. So at this point, we're losing $10,000 a month, but as you can see, kind of as I was talking about, the debt starts to pile up, and it takes a while to, you know, get all of that paid off. But we're getting pretty consistent growth in our residential areas, which is nice to see. And I'm going to go ahead actually and add some capacity for water into these areas. Oops. So again, we're seeing growth, but it's not anything explosive at this point, and that's okay. But it's starting to pick up. Once we hit a certain level of industrial demand, we really start to see more commercial development as well. And our debt just dropped a bit too, which means we paid off the first of our loans, so that bought us a little bit more financial space to play with. And again, we're seeing really good development in our industrial zones. We need more landfill, so I will give you more landfill. You can also use a waste to energy plant, but those are pretty expensive, and even though we're doing a little bit better with money, we're not doing great. So don't want to do anything too outlandish at this point. Some nice industrial growth over here. And we've got the offer to put in a TV studio for free, and you almost always want to take those free offers because they will boost your commercial demand, which tends to be a nice thing. We're asked to put in a marina. Don't really have the money for that right now, and that's okay. So, getting asked to put in one more. I'm going to put in one more little development in a minute. So as you can see, we're starting to get more of a variety of different types of buildings. So getting some wealthier commuters as well, which is nice. But again, we've got like many thousands of people using this bridge, this highway, but we've got some over here as well. But our congestion still looks good on both, so what we're seeing is it's pretty easy for people to get from place to place. But we do have this big area of just industrial, so one of the next things that we're going to do is I'm going to build a kind of a residential buffer zone right up here. But for right now, this is going to be the end of our part 2 video.